Yo, what's going on, guys? So I'm finally doing it. I'm making the movement video that people have been asking for, but I haven't had a good way of explaining everything until now. I'm going to try my best to explain from the very basic fundamentals all the way to the extremely difficult stuff all in one video. So yeah, I guess let's just get into it. Okay, so before I get into anything serious, I just want to explain kind of the setup right here. So I have the hand cam overlay for my controller, so that should hopefully help a little bit. And then on top of that, I have a velocity thing in the top right. So obviously that doesn't account for like falling speed, it's just like your XY speed. So that should help explain where and how I'm getting speed. Okay, so the first one I want to go over that I feel like anyone who plays this game probably already knows this, but I feel like it's hard to make a movement video without explaining this. So it's obviously YY sliding. I'm sure you've seen people do it before. It's the difference between a slide like this, where you stop after you slide, you have to kind of pull yourself back up, versus this, where you keep your momentum perfectly, and every time you do it, it saves 0.1 of a second compared to doing it normally. So if you do it 10 times, you'll get there a second faster. And it's just like generally a pretty good way of getting around the map without doing anything difficult. So what you want to do is basically the only requirements is that you're sliding while you're in the middle of a weapon swap. And the second triangle press or Y press or whatever your weapon swap is just simply to keep your gun that you had back out. Like for example, I can do it like this, but then I keep having to switch my weapon. So the button combination is literally just Y, B, Y, or triangle, circle, triangle, or whatever. It's just basically your weapon swapping and then sliding, and then your weapon swapping again. And there's a little bit of a time into it, but it's really simple. It just takes like some getting used to. You might just have to go in a private match or something and try it out a couple times, and you might not notice it right away, and I don't really know how to help with that. You kind of just have to see the slight difference between them so you know if you're doing it properly. But anyone who knows how to do it, like, we can instantly tell when someone's not doing it. Like, it looks really unsettling. So yeah, after a while of getting used to it, it should be pretty easy. But yeah, this is like the basic stuff. Okay, so this next one that I want to teach is still pretty simple, but it has the potential to be very difficult if you want to actually optimize it. And that's how to boost further or boost faster or whatever you want to call it. And so the way I still see some people boosting is jumping and then using other boost. And like, let's say if I was trying to go from here to here, that's never happening. Even if I hit the perfect jump off of this, it's just I'm not even gonna get close to that roof, right? And so the first step is that you're gonna want to use your boost in sections of 3. There's other ways to do it as well, like sections of 2 or sections of 4 that can be good for other stuff, but that's for later in the video for the more complex stuff. I would learn 3 for now. And it's basically just doing this. It's trying to split them up into 3 equal sections, and you're also trying to time them equally. And if you do that, you can get a lot further. You can get to here. So it's already a good bit better than the just straight holding your boost, where I'm not even making it close to that. But how to take this to the next level where you're actually going to be getting distance and speed combined is actually going to be called something called air strafing. So I'll show you what that looks like real quick. And so you can see I'm like clearing way more distance that way. And the thing is how you actually build speed is by doing something kind of, it doesn't really seem sensical, and it's basically like a strafe mechanic that's in a lot of other games, but it's slightly juggling your character's velocity left and right in the air, and that helps you build more speed. And so how you do it in this game is basically you're going to still do those 3 boosts, except you're going to use your left analog stick, so your movement stick, to basically go left, right, left. And you want to make sure that your analog stick, your left one, is already pointed in the direction it needs to be before you press your boost. So like if I'm trying to go right, I'm not going to press my boost and then angle it right. It always has to be there before you use your boost. So for this section stuff, you want to switch your analog stick when you have that little in-between break in between the boosts. So that way it's already there for the next time you boost. And so when that's done really well, you can get a ton more distance. And yeah, so the benefits of this is, 1, you build a lot more speed. if we compare it to this, like I'm getting like 290, and the most speed I can build off of this is like over 400 if you do it perfectly. And so it's faster and you go further. So you can get places quicker, you can cover the same distance but using less boost. And when you boost in sections, it also allows you to have more fine air control. Because say I can go like left, left, and then right if I wanted to. And yeah, basically I could just have more air control instead of just boosting all at once and then kind of going wherever I boosted. And so this is something that can be optimized a ton. Like, it's not super bad to learn, but it's also something that is like really never perfected, because there's like ideal angles of where you hold the left stick, the perfect timing, you know, etc. But generally, yeah, this is a really, really important thing to learn. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to cover is edge sliding and its uses and how to do it better, you know, stuff like that. So a regular slide on the ground, how it basically works is you're starting off at a set velocity when you press your slide button. I believe it's like 600. And then there's a friction coefficient on the ground. And so you're basically instantly slowing down after that. And so how you can get around that is you can slide off an edge. And because you're going to be in the air immediately after you slide, you can hold a certain amount of speed. And so how much speed you get off the slide is determined by how late the timing is. And so if you try and run and press at the very last second, you won't get a slide in time, because the slide has to be like, the button has to be held down for an amount of time. And so you kind of have to get a feeling for it, of like how late you can do it and still get an edge slide. But you should be looking, if you do have access to this velocity meter, I'll link it in the description. You should be looking for around 610. But either way, if you can just tell, like, I couldn't really slide off it any later, then that's probably good enough. But yeah, so generally, yeah, you just want to try and do this as late as possible. Okay, so for the next spot, I'm going to tell you how to like kind of use your boost to actually make this work better. So the same thing from before where we were strafing our boosts, you're going to do the same thing here. So like, let's say I was trying to go from this edge and I was going to go all the way over to here on the back of that truck. If I just slide and then use all my boosts, well, that can happen sometimes when you're trying to do things really well. That's how you know you're doing it good, by the way, is if your attempts start to look like that sometimes. So that means you're timing it really late. So a regular slide won't get you very far. You know, you might be able to get up there just barely, but if you want to go further, you should have it in your mind to try and, instead of edge sliding right towards it, you should edge slide slightly away at an angle like maybe going here. And then when you use your boost, you're going to sort of curve back. So the line you're going to take is kind of more like this in the air. And that's going to help you get more speed. And so if you do that, you can get a lot further. And then a way to do this even better is you're going to split your boost into a section. And now this is something that is very, very timing specific. And it's just a feel. And I don't really know how to help other than maybe just watching this and really getting a good idea of the timing I do this. But you're going to do a little bit of a thrust stutter. So instead of using the last half of your boost all in one go, because like obviously the first half is being used by the slide, and then you have half left. You're not going to use that half right away. You're going to use about 3/4 of it. So you have about that much left. And then you can use your last little bit of boost to either strafe a different direction or strafe even more in the same direction to build even more speed. And when you do that, it's really, really, really good. It's the best for getting distance. You get more speed from it. It's just generally a lot better. Like, that was a pretty good one. So, yeah, there's not too much to go over with edge sliding. Once again, it's the type of thing that can be optimized, and it can turn into a thing with a bunch of frame perfects if you really want to get specific with it. But generally, you can get within, I'd say, 99% of the best you can do it by just getting this down even decently good. Okay, so I've already done this one on my YouTube before, but I'm going to just go over again how to do a wall look, because I think I've seen a lot of people have misconceptions about it. And so I just want to cover it again really quickly now that I have a better way to explain it. So the only thing that matters for a wall look is that you're getting an angle off of the wall that you wouldn't normally be by running off. So when you run off a wall and you try and jump away from the wall, there's like a hard limit on how far you can jump away. And so that's what you're trying to get around with the wall look. And how you do that is by looking into the wall. And so it's all just like, it's all angles. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with flicking into the wall and flicking back out like a lot of people think. It's just an angles thing. So in order to do it, you need to be looking into the wall like about 45 degrees. And then with your left analog stick, you're just going to pull it down into the left if the wall's on your right. If the wall's on your left, you're going to pull it down into the right. And that exact angle is basically just, if you sit on the ground and do it, you should be walking away from the wall and going slightly forward. That's how you know you have the right left stick angle. And so as long as you were looking into the wall that much, your analog stick was pulled this way. If you press jump, you'll do a wall look. It has nothing to do with this looking in and out thing. That's just done because people who are really efficient at it don't want to have to keep looking into the wall. But if you're trying to learn, you can literally sit here and just practice it like this. Just slowly turning yourself into the wall and pulling the analog stick there. There's no need to do the flick. The flick is just done so that way you can keep traversing and not having to, worry about the wall look itself. And as you get more efficient at it, you'll just naturally, do that section of it quicker. So don't think of it like you're pushing yourself off with your camera. Your camera is just used to get angle control. That's it. So if you want to do wall looks better, just practice them like this. You don't have to do the flick like really crazy. It doesn't matter. Okay, so this is where it's going to start to become a little bit more difficult. And it's how to do wall bounces. And so what a wall bounce is basically just a jump off of the wall, similar to a B-hop if you've seen that in games like Counter-Strike or something like that, where you're jumping off the ground really, really quickly in hopes to keep the speed that you had before you hit the ground. And the quicker you timed the jump input, the more speed you would keep. And it's kind of the same thing here, except that's not really a function in this game. And so instead we have wall bouncing. So when you connect to the wall, you go down to a certain speed. So you can see it's 282. It's the same as your regular running speed. And so the thing is that the wall run will not instantly put you to that wall running speed. It's a gradual shift from whatever speed you had to the wall running speed over a set amount of time. And so if you want to do a wall bounce, first it makes sense for you to have more speed than this 282. And that's where the edge slide comes in, right? Because if I do an edge slide, I'll have, a lot more speed than the regular base speed. Or even just an air strafe where I can end up with, over 400. But just anything that you end up having more than the regular run-in speed, you can take advantage of a wall bounce because then you can maintain that speed. And this is kind of how all of the movement stuff really becomes possible. This is the really, really big, main important one. And it's how you pull off like insane amounts of speed. And so basically you're going to try and do an edge slide. I think this is a really good spot to learn it. And you're basically going to try and press a jump input on the frame that you land on the wall. That's what you're going after. But consistently hitting frame perfects on these is going to be sort of something you have to get used to. The first bounce is always going to just be a pure timing. Like you just have to have a feel for the game on when you're going to connect to the wall. You don't want to be waiting until you connect to the wall to jump. It's almost something you just know when to click it. So the frame that you land, you're jumping off. And then every bounce after that, if you're intending on chaining it, is just a simple timing because you reconnect to the wall at a set interval. So that can be something that's learned. You just kind of know, like, okay, like I'm going to connect to it every time there now because it's just a simple jump. And so to do a wall bounce, you can see if I do a regular wall bounce, if I do a regular wall bounce, I can keep a set amount of my speed. So that was like 1 frame late. You can see I lose a little bit. But assuming that you do a perfect wall bounce and you just bounce straight, you'll keep 100% of the speed that you came into the wall with, potentially even more if you had a fall into it, because it converts all momentum into forwards momentum. And so your ability to keep speed largely is dependent on how well you can time this. But if you want to actually gain speed, then we have to take advantage of the strafing, similar to the air strafing or doing it with your edge slides, but you're going to do it with a wall bounce. And so how you do that is if I'm going to slide onto this wall, when I bounce, I want my analog stick to be facing 45 degrees away before I press the jump input. And so when you do that, you can actually gain speed instead of just maintaining the speed that you had. And so doing this is the big trick on how you keep a whole bunch of speed and you fly around the map. And so this is going to be something that's going to take a while to get down. It's really simple at the core, and anyone should be able to do it like moderately well from just a couple tries. But to do this as good as it can be done, I mean, no one is even good enough for that, because there's always more optimal ways. You can always have a better angle, you can get a better timing, you know, things like that. And there's not really a whole lot of ways for me to help with the timing. It's just something you have to get a feel for. And so, yeah. The next thing I want to go over is sort of a variant of it, and it's going to be when you're doing chained wall bounces, like more than one. And to explain that, I'm not even going to do an edge slide, because for this, you can actually gain speed on the wall. You don't even need to have a speed coming into it. You can gain speed just by wall bouncing. And that's by repeatedly curving the wall bounces themselves. And so this can help you gain speed if you don't have speed coming into it, but it can also help you maintain the speed that you came into it with more so. Because even under ideal circumstances, like if I get, say, 600 speed off of this, and then I keep hitting frame perfect wall bounces all across this wall, I'll only at best keep the exact speed I came into it with, and I won't gain any more. But realistically, you'll be a frame late on a couple of them, probably even more if you're getting, you know, just getting used to it. And so, yeah. How you do this is just when you're on the wall and you're going to do a bounce, what you're trying to do is you're trying to have your analog stick in a slight angle away from the wall when you press the jump input. It can't be afterwards. You can't jump off it and then turn it this way. It has to already be off to a slight angle before you press the jump input. And your goal is that you're trying to jump away so slightly that you can pull yourself back into the wall for the next bounce without using any boost to get back there. So it looks something like this. And it's going to require a lot of getting used to. And the chaining part is very difficult because you have to jump away from the wall. And then as soon as your jump input is registered, you're going to be trying to pull yourself back into the wall. And then right as you're about to reconnect, you have to then place your left stick back in position to do the next bounce. And so it's going to be something that's tricky to learn, and I think this is one of the hardest mechanics to actually master, because there's really there's no way to do it perfectly, because there's the frame perfect jumps that you have to do, but then combined with that, you have to do pretty much like angle perfect left stick inputs as well at the same time. And so if I do that, I'll show you a demonstration between just jumping on this wall and bouncing normally. Yeah, so, you know, I can get to about 300 by the end of the wall. And so now I'll do it with curving, and you can see how much more speed I'll get by the end of that wall. Right? And that wasn't even very good. Like, that was a very, very poor example of it, and I'm still getting, you know, almost 100 units more than that. But it becomes even more important when you're coming into it with speed, because the speed is much easier to lose. If you're one frame late, you'll lose a lot more speed than if you're one frame late, but you have like no speed coming into it. And so, yeah, this becomes incredibly useful when you're trying to, say, do this clip you've probably seen before of this slide and then 2 bounces and trying to make it all the way to that wall there. It's basically impossible without it. And so, yeah, when you do the curves, it becomes much, much, much easier. So this next part, I want to talk about how to do a wall look and a wall bounce at the same time, which is a lot easier than people might think it is. So if you already know how to do a wall look, you know that it's just an angles thing. So you need to be looking into the wall and you need to be pulling away. And if you already have this down, then this should be pretty easy, because all you have to do is while you're in the air about to hit the wall bounce, you're going to angle yourself in the way that you need to be. So you're going to angle your right stick in, so you're looking into the wall, and you angle your left stick out. And so then from that point, all you have to do is just get the timing down and press jump. And so what that looks like is actually pretty simple. You can just angle in and then do it like that. So yeah, hopefully that helps with that. I might have simplified that a little bit too much. That might be difficult to learn if you're getting used to it. But yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to explain the floor bounce. And the floor bounce looks like this. And how you do the floor bounce is pretty simple, but it's also really, really inconsistent because it depends on a lot of things. And so basically all it is you're trying to use your boost as late as possible right before you're about to hit the ground. And it only really works if you have speed and a little bit of falling into the floor bounce or the ground bounce or whatever you want to call it. And so basically, if you try and time it too late, you're going to land on the ground and then do a jump. And that won't work because B-hopping is not really a thing in this game. You lose a ton of speed. And the other benefit of this is that, like, if you were trying to do that clip I just did where you do a bounce off of this and then try and strafe to there, if you were going to try and strafe directly after instead of waiting for the floor bounce, you wouldn't have your boost ready. So it's beneficial from a speed standpoint, and it's also beneficial from having your boost ready, which is another big part of this movement. And it's just how to manage your boost so that way you always have boost when you need it, and it's charging when you're not doing anything important. And so, yeah, there's other benefits of it there. The other benefit of it as well, like another function that this floor bounce does, is if you're using your boost while you're falling, you have to use some of that boost to correct you from going down back to going up. But if you wait for this timing, you instantly start going up instead. So it's beneficial from a height standpoint as well. Like if I'm trying to make it up into this roof here, I can't do it if I'm falling and then I try and boost, because the first part of my boost is spent correcting my going down to going back up. But when you time it like this, the way the game handles it is because you're basically on the ground, you instantly start going up as if you just jumped normally. And so to get into the specifics how you want to do this is you just want to come off of any wall or anything where you have speed. Like you can do it off of a wall look, anything. And it's basically just how close can you get this timing. But then if you want to make this even better, you need to understand that the first little bit of boost that you use on the floor bounce is very, very inefficient. And so you want your floor bounce's first boost to be a very, very small one. Like you just want to use a tiny bit of your boost on the first initial like pop off the floor, because any boost you use after that won't actually speed you up at all, because you already hit like a crazy boost of speed. So the boost you continue to use in that same chunk is basically going nowhere. And so, yeah, you want this first boost to be really, really, really small. And the other thing you need to do to this to get more speed is, let's say you're trying to floor bounce up here from here. You want to come into it like this, and then right as you're about to floor bounce, you're going to shift your left stick position. So that way when you time it, you're going to instantly start going the other way. It's not like a crazy shift change like this. It's just a very slight angle shift, and it's going to help you get more speed than if you just do it straight. The other things with this is that if you're coming into it from too much height, you won't be able to floor bounce. If you're coming into it with not enough height, you won't be able to floor bounce, or at least not as well. There's like an optimal range of height that you can come into it with where you'll get a ton of speed. And there also seems to be some inconsistency with it. Like, it gets very, very, very precise when it comes to the speed you came into it with, the height you came into it with, the angle you switch to. It's kind of just a really inconsistent trick. But yeah, it's another way to just traverse around the map, and yeah. Okay, so the next trick that I want to teach is called the F slide. And it might be why you're here, because nobody really explains how to do this. And it's also a trick that can either be pretty easy or literally the hardest thing to do in this game. And it's because it entirely depends on how you're trying to do it, where you're trying to do it, things like that. So for example, this is a really good place to teach it because you have a straight slide directly to a wall. And so what an F slide is you're basically just trying to find a little pocket in the wall where when you connect to it, you're not fully connecting to the wall, you're just barely connecting to it. And so when you do that, when you get into this pocket, whatever speed you have is exactly the speed that you'll keep. So your forward speed, your falling speed, your going up speed, everything gets like maintained essentially. And so the faster you come into this with, you'll just keep that exact speed. And so the way to do this is you basically just want to come into the wall and you want to find this like pocket. And the best way I can describe it is it's like that spot on the wall where you're like, you feel like you're going to connect. It's just like very slightly before that, but it can't obviously be over here or you won't find it at all. It's just a tiny little pocket you have to get into. And the only other thing you need to know is that you need to be looking more than parallel. So you can't be looking anywhere away from the wall. It's parallel and in. So anywhere from here to here, you'll be able to F-slide. But realistically, you'll probably just want to do a slight little turn like this, and you'll be fine. And also, if you try and jump on the wall, like a regular wall bounce, it won't really work. It's kind of hard to explain. You'd have to just get it a couple times. But all you need to know is that jumping like a regular wall bounce won't work when you're in this F-slide. And also that your right stick input does not matter whatsoever. It's like once you connect to it, you're just floating. And until you reach like the peak of the wall, you'll just keep going in whatever direction. So if I connect to the F-slide and I'm going up, I'll just keep going up at that same rate until I reach the top of the wall, and then I'll start to go down. And yeah, so to do it off of an edge slide is pretty simple. You're just going to want to like find a pocket, but obviously with the edge slide, it helps if you do it from a straight angle like this. And yeah, so that's how you do an F slide. It's, like I said, it's very, very simple, but if you want to do it where you're coming into it from weird angles, like if I wanted to come in it from here and then like instantly go into the F slide, or like, I don't know, some crazy edge slide into it, or having to like slide out and slide back in like on some free run spots, this can become incredibly difficult. But if you're doing it from a simple lineup like this, it's really, really easy to do, to be honest. It doesn't require a whole lot of skill. It's just kind of something that you can get used to the point where you can do it like moderately consistently. So yeah. Okay, so now I'm just going to cover some of the more niche, more movement clip style things that you're probably never going to do in actual games. Or some of them you might, but generally they're just niche and less used. And so to start off, because we were just going on F slides, I'll go over a mechanic of F sliding called, well, actually, I don't really know what it's called because I actually found this a little while ago. If you're on an F slide, you're not able to bounce off of the wall like normal. And so you only have the height that you came up to it with. So if I was trying to come off of this wall and then go like all the way over there or something, as soon as I come off the F slide, I'm instantly going to start falling because I can't get a jump at the end of it. And so there's actually a strategy where you can get onto the wall for a bounce. And the way you do that is by basically turning more into the wall and taking your left stick and angling it in. And then after a set amount of time of doing that, you'll connect to the wall. And then so from there, you can then take your left stick and angle it out and then press jump. And that timing is really, really, really precise. But I'll show you what it looks like. So, to be honest, this is kind of a complicated trick, and it's not super easy to do. And it's also like the prerequisite for it is that you hit an F slide into it. So it's kind of yeah, not super practical, but the trick itself isn't too bad. It's just the timing of it. You need to have a really good feel for the game of when you're just going to connect to the wall to actually get a well-timed bounce. But it helps you get a lot more distance off an F slide and also more height, obviously. So yeah, that's that. Okay, so the next thing that I feel like is kind of niche, but still I should probably include, is doing backwards wall running, and more importantly, backwards wall bounces. So normally, obviously, you can't like do a backwards wall run the same way you can do a forwards wall run. And so how you get around that is by looking into the wall, similar to how you do a wall look, and holding your left stick instead of away, you're gonna hold it down and towards the wall. And so if you do that, you should connect to the wall. But unless you get super lucky, and I can't really describe how, you can't wall run just in a straight line. It'll force you to go down. And so how you can get around that is by continuously wall bouncing. And you can still do the curving thing from the other thing as well to get even more speed on it. But when you do that, it lets you stay on the wall, because then you're not on the wall for long enough for it to pull you off. And then you can do some really funny things like doing wall bounces backwards for clips and stuff like that. And it's actually not any slower than doing it the forwards way, because you're still able to curve it and everything. So, yeah, that's kind of a stupid trick, but it kind of leads me into the next spot, which is doing a backwards F slide. And it's kind of the same ordeal. You just need to remember that stick position that's going to let you get on the actual wall run. You're going to have it there, except you're going to be aligned so that way you can do the F slide. And this trick is really, really stupid, to be honest. Like, I don't recommend learning this unless you're... Honestly, unless you hate yourself, because it's kind of just stupid. You're just going to try it a bunch of times, and you probably won't do it for a really long time. But, yeah, that's backwards F sliding. Okay, so some other little things that if you're this far, you probably already know, but I should probably explain, is other weird variants, like an instabounce, where if you have an edge slide or an edge right beside a wall, you're able to get a wall bounce pretty much directly off of it. And it can be really good for going from 280 speed to like almost 700 in a matter of literally 0 time. And so it's a pretty good strategy. And to do this, it's pretty simple. You just want to slide, and pretty much as soon as you connect to the wall, just press jump. So it's basically just slide jump really quickly. And you're also going to want to make sure that your analog stick is facing away from the wall when you do it, so that way you can still get the benefits of curving away from the wall. And the other trick I can think of is doing corner bounces. And so a corner bounce is basically just when you're coming at the wall from an off angle. So like if I wanted to wall bounce off this side, but coming at it from here, it's kind of like a tricky thing. You have to kind of curve yourself around the wall, but it lets you jump away from the wall at a steeper angle than you normally would. And so you're able to get more speed. It's also something that can quickly give you more speed than you should. Even if you're just like running normally, like if I go here and I hit this corner bounce, I really quickly get a lot more speed. And that's something that can be a lot more difficult if you're coming into it from really steep angles, or you don't have a lot of time to line it up, like somewhere like right here. This is a really good spot if you do it really well. And of course, there's a ton of other wall run related mechanics, but I wouldn't call them specific mechanics, because basically everything else that I might not include in this video is just a variant or a combination of things I've already described here. But generally, if you include all of this stuff together and you incorporate it all together, that's pretty much how you increase your movement, right? Because, you know, for a wall bounce, if your edge slide was faster, the wall bounce will be faster, and if the wall bounce is timed better, you know, it's like you're basically just combining all of these things, and the better you do them, it will exponentially increase how much speed you can maintain throughout the map. And if you'd like to know how to efficiently practice this, I think the best thing you can do is just go around on maps and just try and move around and have fun, and I wouldn't really worry about it too much, but that's kind of what I did. I would just be sitting in PlayStation parties with my friends and stuff, and you know, my ADHD brain, I had to be doing stuff, so I was just always kind of doing movement, wasn't even really thinking about it, until it basically became second nature to me. And that also goes into the fact of how you're able to do this stuff while you play. Because if you're having to do this movement while you're thinking really heavily about it, you're not really going to be able to do much else but the movement. And it'll end up just getting you killed a lot, because you're just going to be so dialed in on, oh, you know, I got to hit this floor bounce, and someone's just going to come out and kill you. So it needs to really become second nature to you. And yeah, the best way to do that, I think, is just, yeah, having fun going around on maps, trying to find a fun clip to go for. And if you're wanting to learn all of this, I also recommend getting into free run, because going for movement clips that are, you know, 5-10 seconds long that you spend an hour long going for is not really going to make you any better at actually pulling this stuff off. It's going to give you a better understanding, but you're trying to go for consistency. And so I think free run is really good for that, because it stresses all of these mechanics that I've just mentioned, and it does it over the span of, you know, minute 30 to 2 minutes long. So you improve your time by improving your consistency. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say for movement. I mean, I can think of other weird niche things, but for the most part, that's everything you need to know. And if you understand all of that, you'll be able to pick the rest of the little things I might not have mentioned up on your own. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and obviously if you have any other questions, you can just ask me or leave a comment or PM me on Discord, anything like that, and I'll try my best to help out. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a good day.